This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Thanks everyone for joining. Baruch haba. Welcome to, we continue in the Shir on the Iggeres HaGra. Now, a few people commented this might be one of the most sensitive things that we ever came across and we ever learned. It's actually somewhat of a painful thing that the Gra says that a person has to really be very careful to teach their children and train their children to learn Sifrei Musar, not to curse, not to swear, not to speak falsely. Don't let up, don't be lenient with them. And because the Gra says even if a parent does his utmost to train and to teach his child and they're not makabel, woe to that busha and bizayon in the world to come. And the Gra quotes Chazal, Kiman Karinan LaRasha ben Sadik, Rasha ben Rasha. A Rasha who's the son of a Tzaddik, they will call him a Rasha, the son of a Rasha. If the father is a Tzaddik but the kid is a Rasha, the father is called a Rasha as well. So that's somewhat of a harsh sentence that the Gra is quoting a Gemara. In fact, the Gra brings in the Even Shlema, Parak Vav Ois Aleph, how careful one has to be with their children, because the parent will be culpable, and even if they're a tzaddik and they're in Gan Eden, they will be taken out of the Garden of Eden to see what the repercussions to their child is. And this is even quoted by the Chafetz Chaim, and it's painful even to say over. Chafetz Chaim brings it, I remember in the Sefer Shmiras Halashon, and the Chafetz Chaim also brings in a Sefer Davar Be'itoi Parak Yadaled. And we mentioned yesterday from Reb Chaim Kanievsky and from Reb Gershon Edelstein that it's their opinion that even if a parent did their utmost, they're still liable because they could have davened. In fact, talk about the great obligation that a parent has to daven for their child. I know many would ask the Brisker Rav, what is the eitzah to have good children? He said there are no eitzahs. All there is tefillah, tehillim, and tears. Somebody once came to the Brisker Rav's house and he was sitting around the table speaking and learning with all of his boys, and this Rosh Hashiva, his children, he was not successful with his children, and the Brisker Rav told him there are no tachbulos, there are no eitzahs, there's no advice other than tehillim and tears. He would say that many parents, when they rock their children to sleep, so they sing lullabies and they sing about children rolling down hills and have their head decapitated, which is a sure recipe to have your kid wake up in the middle of the night with a nightmare. And he would say tehillim that the child should come out to be Yirei Shamayim. In fact, the Brisker Rav said never in his life did he daven one dry-eyed Shemona Esrei. He cried in every single Shemona Esrei for his children. And I think we've said over many times the story that somebody once came to the stipler for advice, and the stipler says, advice, all there is tehillim. You see my little boy Chayimol? Every day I daven for Chayimol to be God-fearing, and Chayimol was already 52 years old, one of the Gedolei Hadar. Okay.
Rabbi, is a parent responsible for Ben Sora and Moreh? The Torah doesn't seem to indicate that in the parsha. It's not giving the parents responsibility. They do all they can, and they have to bring him to the din.
So again, there's no punishment bidei Adam, but it sounds like bidei Shamayim there is a punishment, because in other words, there happens to be a stira between Ben Sorer Umayra and Yishmael, where we say Ba'asher Husham, where a person's Yishmael was judged the way he is then. So there's a concept that there is a certain liability. So I was thinking about the following question: is there any way that somebody could do tshuva for improper chinuch that they gave? Now, there might be situations where somebody's an oinus. Let's say somebody didn't know. Let's say somebody came to Judaism later on in life, or so for whatever the situation, could a person be pater? Could a person be an oines? Or let's say a person was wrong. I'm sure everybody looks back at how they raise their children, and everybody, I'm sure, has some degree of a feeling of where they could have done better, or where they could have put in more time, or where they could have davened better. Certainly this, in a way, it's a very painful subject, but is it possible to do tshuva? So literally 5 minutes ago I remembered that in the end of Chovos HaVavos, in the end of the Shar HaTshuva in Perek Yud, the Chovos HaVavos in Perek Tes has a question: is it possible to do tshuva from any sin? He says, "Im efshar lachzor b'tshuva mikol cher olai." Can you do tshuva from any sin? So he says, if it's averos bein adam leilokim, bein adam lamakim, so then you could do tshuva. But bein adam lachaveroi, it's very hard to do tshuva. Let's say you stole from someone, or you insulted someone. You might not even know who they are. You might not. They may not be alive. How are you supposed to pay them back? Somebody, the Chovos HaVavos says, lived with an erva and produced a mamzer. Now, how are you supposed to do tshuva for that? So, in a way, this is very much like that case. Somebody did something, and now the repercussion is a foregone conclusion. However, in Perek Yud, the Chovos HaVavos concludes that there is no such thing as doing something in this world that's irreparable. Because he says, Im kayemes menia hamakeves hasachoite lachzor b'tshuva, if there is ever an impediment that prevents someone from doing tshuva, hamania hi rak panimi yusei. The only thing that ever holds a person back from doing tshuva is themselves, is their inside. V'libay hamashchas, their corrupt heart. But anyone who wants to come close to Hashem, the gates of tshuva are never locked. Nothing could prevent you. And Hashem b'chazdoi uvetuvai will show you how to do tshuva, and He'll give you opportunities to repair anything. What if somebody lived with an erva and had a mamzer? Says the Chovos HaVavos, it's possible to correct that. I'm not going to say what he says here, but it's not the time or the place. But extrapolating based on what he said, if a person was remiss, so it has to be that you could do tshuva. Otherwise, this rule would not be consistent. It has to be that if a person had a fault, so that means if, let's say, a person didn't know they have to daven for their children, didn't daven enough, they can do tshuva like for any sin. And then the Rebbeinu Shalom will see that the person's making every possible effort, and Rebbeinu Shalom has ways of correcting it. Maybe the Rebbeinu Shalom will help the child turn around, and that kind of thing. In other words, in short, is it possible to do tshuva from improper chinuch? And the answer is, it has to be yes. That's what the Chovos HaVavos says. Nothing in this world is beyond repair. And I think that's what we should take out of this. In learning in general, we never learn to make ourselves feel guilty. Guilty is always the Eitzah or the Yetzer Hara. So you say, what do you mean? Charata is part of doing tshuva. So how do you know the difference between charata and guilt? The answer is, if it inspires you to come closer to Hashem and to do more, then it's charata. If it's debilitating and depressing, then it's guilt. There's no mitzvah in the Torah to have guilt, nor does Rebbeinu Shalom want us to. But what we're learning is that it's very important for a person, now that we know, to be as vigilant as possible and to really be devoted both as to oversee one's children and to be aware of where one's children are holding. And if a person didn't realize that, then a person could do tshuva. And it's never too late to daven. If the Stipler was davening for Reb Chaim Kanievsky when he was 52 years old, and there's a story where even when he was older. So, ein lecha davar ha'imeh b'fnei tshuva. And certainly if we do our utmost, Rebbeinu Shalom has many shluchim lamakim to help us achieve the results that we hope for. Okay, so the Gra says, again, this Musar Sefer is very different than Tomer Devara. It's, I guess, in a sense, much more strict in terms of personal behavior. He says, V'ikar HaKol, the main thing is, Shlo yetzu chas v'shalom mi Pesach beisim l'chutz. Heaven forbid to let your daughter leave the house, ever. Now, I don't think this is going to fly in 2020. Somehow I have a hunch that this one's not going to go over. So, obviously, it has to be Lefi Madrega Sam and Lefi Hadar. But the one thing, the point of the Gra is that, a parent could do everything in their power, but then they go out into the street and they learn the values out there. So, you could say, I'm a great mechanech, but if you allow the kid the improper influences, then you can't really control. So at the very least, a person has to know who your children's friends are. What are they watching? What are they looking? I'm a great mechanech, but I allow the kid on the internet without any supervision. So, lots of luck there. I'm a great parent, but the kid could close his door and watch anything on television at any time. So, what do you expect? Ma'yasa haben shelo. So, that's the upshot over here. V'sheyitzaisu v'yichabdu oischa. The Gra says, tell our daughters, they need to honor you. Ule'imi, and my mother, their grandmother. U'lechol ha'gdolim b'shana mehem. And they need to honor anybody older than them. So Reb Goldberg points out that it is mimidas derech eretz, that one should show respect to anybody older than them. V'gam kol ma shekoseh b'sifrei musar yikem, whatever they see in the sifrei musar, they should fulfill. Okay, Rabbi say we'll continue next paragraph tomorrow. If anybody wants to get a hold of the new sefer on Hanukkah, you could still get it. Maybe even for Hanukkah, for sure by Shabbos. And it's good stuff. Go to the ArtScroll website.
Also available at retail in many stores.
Thank you.
Yeah, I see it on I saw it in Safra and I saw it in Gift World. I bought it in Gift World.
Thank you. Or you could go to rabbidg.com, or you could speak to Rabbi Yosef Farbowitz. He could direct you to many locations. Commission free. Okay.
Have a good evening.
Okay, good night. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.